Well, Riga came from a young student with no money. That just happened to be me. Very sleepy, said, Roy, what's the problem? He just looked at me and said, do you know what time it is? My mother told me. I came back and said, I don't want to go anymore because the teacher's lying to me. And I wanted to make a turntable that actually sounded great at a good price. But just because it's vinyl, it doesn't mean the sound quality is good.
No, of course, yes.
Most always want to find very competent people who can teach me.
How did you start with audio and
Just
then
go.
yes. So welcome. So we are here at the high-end exhibition in Munich in 2025. I'm here with Roy from Rega. We like to know, I like to know about the history of Rega, where Rega came from, what was the idea of founding the company, of developing hi-fi products and so on. So, Roy, tell us about it.
Well, Riga came from a young student with no money. That just happened to be me, and someone who liked music and who was lucky enough to live for 2 or 3 years in a shared house with some teachers that had a hi-fi system and a record collection. And when I then got married and moved out, the first Sunday morning when I would normally listen to music, I suddenly realized there was no music and I had no money to buy the systems. So I had to start making my own equipment. At that time I was an engineer, was fascinated in car rallying. I'd already built my own motorcycles and I had built 3 rally cars by that time from scratch. So building a pair of loudspeakers on the recommendation of a friend was relatively simple and not very expensive. And then I was working at Ford Motor Company. Many people in the company wanted to buy copies of the loudspeakers I was building. So I generated a little bit of money to buy an amplifier, and I also started to make a turntable. And that's how Riga started. A local shop wanted to buy the turntables, and after selling 5 or 6 of them, he said, why don't we start a business?
That was in the year, so the first.
That was 1972, just before Riga started.
Okay. And when did you start with your own production, big production, and exporting and so on?
Well, the first production was in 1973, and it was 100 a month for a year. We were lucky enough to have a contract with a distributor who gave us a firm order. They paid us before they collected the goods. They even supplied the arm to us free of charge. They were the importer for the arm. So we were able to start without borrowing any money. And then after 1 year, they were struggling to sell even 100. And I had got an order from a shop in France for 100, a shop in Germany for 100 first, and then a shop in Denmark for 100 a month. So as soon as we were able to very amicably move away from the distributor, they still had thousands of arms, so they were supplying them to us free, and we could pay later. And we were suddenly having to make 300 a month. That's when the growth really started. Just for
one model.
One model, one Riga Planet.
And when did it start to grow? So when did you also add more models, more variants? So how was the development over time?
It was a slow but steady development from that time onwards. We got more and more orders for the planet, but I was not happy with it because it was produced from a cosmetic perspective. It was a beautiful sculpture, and I wanted to make a turntable that actually sounded great at a good price. And that started, I think, about, I'm not sure, 75, 76 with the Planner 3. And it was really strange because some of the people selling the Planet said that they would stop if they had to buy the Planner 3. But once the world started to hear the sound quality, the movement changed from the Planet to the Planet 3, and eventually everyone just stopped ordering Planets, and the Planet 3 started to grow until we were making, 1,000, 1,500 a month, a tiny little company.
How about the concept, technical concept of the turntable? So because it's different than others, why is it like it is? So what is the secret? I think it's not no secret, but there is an idea behind.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough from a very young age to always want to find very competent people who can teach me. And I think my parents taught me if you have a question, there's always someone
With the
who can
answer.
answer. And they were artistic people, they were not engineering. And most of my questions were, how do I fix this bicycle? How do I mend this? So they used to get friends to come and help me. And because of that, I think I also learned to understand people who were bluffing, which is most people. And I would understand when people were not experts, which is most people. Even at the age of 5, I can remember going to starting school at the age of just before I was 5 years old. And until that time, my parents were not religious, but didn't tell me anything about religion. So I was blank. And everyone in school went to a Sunday school, which I'd never heard of. But Sunday school was with a church. And the first week I went to school, all my friends were going to Sunday school. And I said to my mother, can I go to Sunday school? And she said, yes, of course. I went to Sunday school, and I've got a memory. But my mother told me, I came back and said, I don't want to go anymore because the teacher's lying to me. Age of 5,
Yeah.
I could tell there was just something wrong with this person. So in the world, I've learned that almost everything people believe, almost everything, is actually completely wrong. When people have strong, passionate beliefs, it usually comes from some mythology. And this was the same with turntables. I, as a naive engineer, followed what I was told in the magazines. And the first turntable I made had a lot of noise, a lot of hum. The motor was vibrating a lot. I could hear it in the music. And all of the magazines said, you must have a very heavy bass. So I made my bass heavier by putting concrete underneath, and the hum got worse. So I then used my engineering understanding and said, of course it will get worse because a heavier bass will inject the energy of this hum into the record. So I then made a much lighter bass, which was my first whole turntable from scratch, and the hum had nearly gone.
So the Planet already had that light.
The Planet was the first turntable with a lighter bass. I still had to suspend the motor a bit because the motor had some vibration, even though it was very quiet.
With springs or
With a rubber suspension. Yeah.
okay.
Which I was very proud of. I discovered it at 2 o'clock in the night one day. and my neighbour knew I was trying very hard to get rid of the noise. And when I discovered this new suspension, I rushed round to his house and banged on his door, and he didn't answer. And I was bang, and then suddenly this man in a dressing gown, very sleepy, said, Roy, what's the problem? I've discovered my motor. He just looked at me and said, do you know what time it is? So anyway, Rega grew from a naive person wanting to make good music at a good price. I was still working at the Ford Motor Company at that time.
And how come that you released also electronic products step by step?
Well, electronics was much later.
Yeah.
In the 1980s. At the time, Name Audio held an unusual place that they were the only company making a very good sounding amplifier. And they were pushing the idea that the amplifier could make a difference, and they were proving it with their products. And other people were actually saying amplifiers can't make any difference. And I was already selling amplifiers to friends, and they all sounded very different. And at that time, most people at Rega had bought name products because they sounded good. And a young designer came to us with a really unusual sounding, but it wasn't a product, it was just a whole lot of components in a big pile of wires. And it was the first time I ever heard anything not better but similar to the quality of sound from a name amplifier. So I was unable to let go and say no.
So you kept them.
We kept him for a year, but he couldn't improve all of the problems. And then we found someone from outside who also looked at the circuit and said, this is amazing, I want to work with it. And in 2 weeks cured all of the problems of noise. And that was our Terry, who's designed all of our products ever since.
And then it was the amplifier. So the amplifier was the first electronics where you started with. And then later you also came up with CD player, right? With the top loader. And so when, like 85? 90?
I think later than that. We were the last significant company in England to make a CD player. A lot of companies had gone broke making players. And we watched and we thought, no, this is commercial suicide. And there was only one source of kits. And they were being very, very difficult commercially. And then Sony came to us and said, we would like you to use our kit. We were shocked. Why would Sony want this big Japanese company want us to use their
so like a laser unit and
complete kit except for the analog amplifier and DNA.
Okay.
It's a chipset and a transport. But it became apparent that they wanted to learn from what we would do with their kit. And after we made our player, we started to see one or two of the components we'd use in the Sony players. So we realized there was a collaborative arrangement. And the Sony kit was just a tiny bit better than the previous. We were able to show it sounded a little better. We were not very impressed, but we could show it sounded a little bit better, which was all we needed. Until we were lucky enough to find a brand new chip, which is a whole long story in our book. But it was, we discovered afterwards, it was the only chip in the world that was actually bit perfect. Because it had been developed much later, it was able to use a much larger memory capacity. And so we could produce a CD player with a much better sound.
And let's talk about now or today. So today you have a quite big portfolio of different levels of turntables, amplifiers, CD player, and so on. And you also started with a compact system one, which includes speaker and a turntable and a small amplifier. So what was the idea of that kind of system?
The system one just became very obvious when young people started to buy entry-level turntables, and they were going into normal hi-fi shops who were trying to sell them loudspeakers that cost £5,000 a pair, and it didn't seem right, so they would walk out and leave the shop. So we thought we would have a system that would cost £1,000 for everything. That was the basic idea. It took us a long time though. By the time we launched the product, actually it was over £1,000, and maybe a little too late. But it's still going now, and sales are growing a little bit.
And so the target customer is like young people who will start with vinyl, and also like older people who had a turntable in the past and maybe you want to restart, also like that.
The older people, I think, were already knowing Rega and happy to buy something a little more expensive. The Planet 3 has been the backbone of our range forever, and still is.
So it's the best all-rounder, let's say.
Yeah, it's a turntable that we're happy could exist in any system at any price and not have any excuses made for it.
How about the future? So how about streaming? The idea of adding streaming products, is this an idea, or is there any plan like this, or what is the main plan of Rega for the future, for future products?
So that's two questions. For streaming, we actually made the hardware for a streamer nearly 10 years ago now, I think something like 8 years ago. And in making it, we discovered we couldn't make anything sound better than the existing products. We also questioned why should anyone have a streamer when they could use a computer. And the problems of the software were nightmares. And we looked at companies who were going broke developing streamers, in particular Name Audio.
Yes.
Vastly underestimated the costs of the digital software. It's not so much the cost of everything that would go wrong. So although we made the hardware and proved we could do that easily, we decided it's not for us. And even now, we are not happy with the sound quality that we get from streaming. And that will answer your second question, is that we've had a lot of success now in every product that we make sound better. Public accepts it more now than in the past, which is really gratifying for us. So we're committed to making better sound products and keeping the price as low as possible in the future.
So, and how do you see the future in general, especially for hi-fi and high-end? So what do you think what will happen in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, in these 2 days at the show, we're talking to 22 distributors. We've already spoken to about 18, and they are struggling a little bit. The world of hi-fi is decreasing a bit because the whole world is depressed economically. Every single distributor has increased a little bit with Rega, which is really nice. We've just been talking with Lithuania, Latvia, Serbia, Croatia. All of their sales have increased 10 or 20% in the last year. It's tiny countries. We have new distributors in South American countries that never existed before. So Rega is just shaking her heads and thinking, Isn't this amazing? Isn't this wonderful?
Is it because of the vinyl revolution? You know, because everyone likes to listen to vinyl again, and all the artists are pressing their new records
Absolutely.
on vinyl.
It's
So
partly that, but just because it's vinyl, it doesn't mean the sound quality is good.
no, of course, yes.
Most new vinyl is digitally recorded,
Yes.
and you may as well have a good CD.
Yeah.
But something many people are just emotionally telling me is that the sound quality that they're listening to with Rega is making them happy and changing. Literally, I know it sounds a little bit far-fetched for me. Many people are saying it's changed their lives. And I've been stopped just coming up this corridor twice by people just saying, I want to shake your hand because I'm loving your products. That makes me want to keep working.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So then, Roy, thank you very much. Please give us more of these products in the future. And yeah, thank you very much for your time and for the interesting input of your history and what happened in the past, what do you think will happen in the future, and so on. So thank you very much, Roy.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
I look forward to the success of newer shops.
Yes, that's
with
a
younger
good,
people
that's
running
good.
them.
Yes, yes, we need that.
Thank you.
Thank you.